Good evening, folks. Well, a good evening if you're in Europe, but good afternoon or morning if you're somewhere else. Welcome to the Agile Leadership and Business Agility Meetup with Agile Center. So thank you for being with us. One of the highest profile certified Scrum trainers around, based right now in Florida, but all around the world. Back in a previous existence before this pandemic anyway. She has pioneered Agile marketing and personal agility, which we'll be hearing about today, and just generally doing this whole Agile thing outside of the IT space. She's a very sought after speaker. I'm super excited to have her. I'm really pleased that she's been able to spare us this time. So speaking about personal agility, I'm going to get out of the way and I'm going to welcome Miss Maria Matarelli. Over to you.
Thank you, Kareem. Appreciate the warm introduction. And thank you everyone for joining us today. It's great to be here presenting to our group. And so today we want to talk about Agile applied in a different way than you may be used to. And I'd like to invite everyone to comment in the chat. First of all, where is everyone joining us from? So comment in the chat, where are you joining us from? I am in St. Petersburg, Florida in the US. So comments in the chat, where are you joining us from? It looks like we are spanning a bit of the globe here. All right, we got London, Cambridge, Ireland, Vienna, Austria, Italy, Gilson, Budapest. Fantastic. All right, so quite a few different locations. So comment in the chat if you haven't already. Great to see so many great locations from around the world. Amsterdam, awesome, awesome, very cool. I've had the privilege of visiting several places that have been listed here. So throughout, I've been to London. I have not yet been to Ireland. I have been to Amsterdam, not yet to Budapest. I have been to Italy and I have been to New Zealand. Oh, awesome. Great to see such a great diversity of people joining. So another question I have for you is, what have you explored or experienced as far as Agile outside of IT? So comment in the chat, how have you either heard Agile being applied outside of IT, or how have you applied it yourself in Agile in different ways other than software development? So many of us know that the use of Agile gained a lot of popularity in software development because it works for really complex type of projects. But Agile can also be used in many other ways. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about today with personal agility. So comment in the chat, how have you applied Agile or heard of Agile being applied outside of software development? So give just a few moments for comments in the chat. Feel free to say chat to everyone so everyone can see your comments. It looks like we have Agile in HR, having OKRs in your life with a Kanban board. Oh, awesome, using with your sales team. All right, wonderful. So it sounds like we have a little bit of exposure to Agile in different applications. And what we're going to look at a lot more deeply today is how Agile can be applied as a powerful leadership framework. And when you start to look at the different applications, like many of us have seen success with Agile. In fact, comment in the chat, what role are you currently in? So curious what roles we have here. I am a certified Scrum trainer, so I do a lot of Agile training, specifically Scrum certifications. Do we have Scrum Masters here? Do we have executives? Do we have managers? What level of roles do we have? So we've got some Scrum Masters here. Oh, also Neil experimenting with the Agile hardware. Very cool. Yeah, Joe Justice has been doing some really cool stuff with Agile in hardware and infrastructure. Mainly focused on business agility training, HR lead. Awesome. Yeah, Neil, that's a great video from Joe, the TED Talk about Agile being applied to build cars, breaking world records, in fact. What other roles do we have present? Comment in the chat, what other roles do we have present? So any other Scrum Masters? Got maybe a product owner or two, a leader, managing director. Okay, so we've got quite a few different roles joining us. So thank you for sharing, I very much appreciate that. It just helps me understand the context of who's here, where are you from, and what is your background. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. And I'm excited to talk about this concept of personal agility as a powerful leadership framework, because what we're seeing is that Agile works, right? Like we know that Agile works. We're seeing this well applied in many different ways throughout the business. And one of the things that is challenging is a lot of companies, they know that Agile works, yet they're not really getting the results. In fact, there's companies that I've worked with firsthand where we've had maybe 70 teams transitioning from a traditional waterfall approach to using the Scrum framework. And so I was working with a team of coaches as we trained up and did coaching for all of these teams. Now, these are teams across multiple time zones, across multiple countries, teams that are distributed, some on site from Chicago. And interestingly enough, after about 2 years of transitioning all of these teams to using Scrum, I came back about 1.5 to 2 years later, and this company was helping us host some of our Agile leadership courses that we were running in Chicago. And so one year, like this is about 1.5 years ago, we got all kinds of signups, like out of nowhere. And I was like, wow, like the class is almost sold out. Like what's going on? And so I was talking to someone who was registering. I said, hey, I'm just curious. Do you know why there's such an influx of all these people signing up for our Agile leadership course? And I was like, it's great, don't get me wrong, but I'm just curious if there was a reason or what was the reason behind it. And she said, oh yeah, so what happened was our company actually got acquired by another company about, I think it was a couple of years prior. And she said that the new leadership came in and they pretty much command and controlled everything back into like almost the state it was before we did the Agile transition. So I was floored that just by changing the leadership could have such an impact on the organization to unravel all of the coaching and all the training that we had done over the course of several years. And so this led me to think, why is that? Or how is it that that's the case? What is it that leaders want? And when I'm working with a lot of the teams that I train, almost every single time I get questions where people say, Maria, this stuff sounds great. And we would love to use Agile in our organization. And it sounds like it would really work, or be something that could really be effective, but we're not sure how it would work here because we've got all of these constraints. And they proceed to list a bunch of reasons. Then it usually goes back to leadership support. It goes back to the culture. It goes back to all of these things outside of just the team doing the Agile, right? So like a lot of times leaders will say, hey, we want our teams to be Agile. We want them to do Agile. But if you don't truly embrace Agile as a mindset, and if you don't really understand that as a leadership perspective, how can we really set our teams up for success? Now, here's another thought. Imagine if the people coming into work were truly motivated and excited and engaged. Now, people go into work for about, a third of the day? So let's say they work approximately 8 hours, give or take a few, and they've got 24 hours in a given day. So there's about 2/3 of the day where they're not at work. So that means that whatever's happening in their life may have an impact on them, and most likely has an impact on them, depending on how healthy their relationships are, depending on if they're stressed financially, depending on what their world is like outside of work. They're bringing all of that baggage into work, right? So if we want high performing teams, right? That's why people use Agile. But if we don't actually have people that are empowered and at their best, well, there's people on these teams, right? So if you want high performing teams, we might need higher performing people. So this gets back to why we're talking about personal agility. Can we as leaders truly embrace Agile? And can we be the example for everyone in our organization? And can we empower our people to truly understand Agile so well at a personal level that they truly embody that? And they're truly engaged and excited to be there at work and helping us achieve our goal as a company, right? So when we talk about personal agility, it can be used as a coaching framework, and the basis is a leadership framework. It's not just as an individual, although that's part of it, right? So the better that we are, the better that we can show up at work. But it's also something that we can do as far as leaders to help make sure that everyone in our organization is set up for success. So we'll talk more about that. So a lot of companies out there, they want to be Agile, right? And there's this huge trend over the last several years about the topic of business agility and how we can apply Agile throughout the entire business. So companies want to be Agile. They want the results that come with it. And why is that? Well, according to the State of Agile version 1 survey, they figure it's because of these reasons. They want faster delivery, want to be able to better manage changing priorities, more productivity, better quality, less cost, and less risk. These are the reasons companies are wanting to be agile. Even in Forbes, there was an article where they're looking at the degree of business success over time. And if you look at today's view of our opportunity, well, using a traditional waterfall approach, like we can only go so far. We can only project so far into the future. However, using more of an iterative approach, an agile approach, the actual opportunity may be further than we think, but we need to be thinking in an agile way. We need to be planning in an agile way. And we can go way further than ever before. So this is no mystery, right? Like we know why companies want to be agile. They want better results. They hear other companies getting amazing results in the industry and they want those results too. So to get to a point of business agility, what's interesting is that a lot of people are talking about this, but then what we probably need to do is start to look at agile further outside of IT. If you're going to be agile throughout the entire business, we need to do more than just agile applied in our software development practices and in the IT application, which is where a lot of companies are getting success with agile. That's one of the reasons we've been exploring agile in marketing. And when you look at agile applied to marketing, what's really cool about that is that it's not just getting a product to market faster because you're using an iterative approach. It's actually having better, more targeted campaigns and more money coming in sooner with less ad spend because you're constantly inspecting and adapting on how that flows, right? So we need to be agile throughout the entire business. There's also this notion of what got us here won't necessarily get us to the next state of where we want to be. The things we've been doing as businesses, they got us to a certain point, right? The way we've been operating got us to a point of scalability. Sometimes you need systems and processes to scale, but now what? And especially now with 2020 and kind of everything being flipped upside down, I'm pretty sure most companies' plans for the year are completely irrelevant. And everyone's been replanning and been forced to pivot and forced to be agile, whether they wanted to or not, right? So now let's take that into the landscape. Now there's so much more uncertainty right now with government regulations and this global pandemic. And there's so many reasons for us to be agile now than ever before. But really the thing I want to make as a point here is that whatever we've been doing to this point may not be the same things. It got us to this point, but it may not be what's going to get us to where we really want to be. So what do, right? Over the last about 4 years, I've been traveling around the world and I've been leading agile training and consulting with organizations. And at the end of every class, end of every engagement, I ask the question, what do you think is going to be the biggest challenge that you'll see applying these agile concepts that we just talked about? Now, even though there's challenges, what could be the opportunity? So we're going to be prepared. We're going to anticipate there's some challenges. And then we're also going to look for what could be the benefit or the opportunity if we're able to overcome those challenges. And I've gotten quite a few responses over the last 4 years. In fact, I looked at aggregating up the commonalities, and there were some common themes that arose on what people saw as the biggest challenges and what people thought would be the biggest opportunities. And over the last 4 years, I pretty much spanned the globe. So we've covered a little bit of Europe, a little bit of Asia, a lot of the US, a little bit of Canada, and even over into Australia. So as we look at this, I started going through what are all the responses that we get? What are these challenges and opportunities that people see? And one of the things that came up that really floated to the top was organizational buy-in. Is the organization truly bought into this agile approach? So what you're saying makes sense, would love to practice Scrum, but is my organization really going to allow us to do that? Because we got all these policies and procedures and all these things that are limiting our ability to iterate and adapt, right? So you're telling us to adapt, but how can we really do that? Leadership support, this comes up time and time again. And this is why we're talking about this within the agile leadership context, because leadership support is so incredibly important. I remember walking into a company up in, it was Toronto, a couple of years back, and they were so excited about their huge agile transition. And they're like, we have all of our leaders are so supportive. Look at all this training that we're doing. And you know, the leaders made a video. They made an inspirational video about our support of agile. I'm seeing some smiles because you guys know exactly where this is going. So I walk into the training class and I'm like, all right, hi, how's everybody doing? Let's start going over this content. Here's what agile is. Here's how it works. Here's how you can apply it. And the questions I got immediately were, well, yeah, but how are we going to do this? Like, our approval process can't be any shorter than 3 weeks. Like, it takes literally 3 weeks to get anything approved around here. So how are we supposed to deliver in 2 week sprint, right? And they can start asking all these very legitimate questions. And I'm like, okay, let's see here. So here's what we can do within our control, right? And here's what we can escalate to leadership. But boy, the people coordinating the training were so proud of all the leadership support, of the words being said of support. But what ends up often happening is leaders say, okay, you guys go do this, and then we're going to like reap the benefits of all the Agile, right? But hey, this is for you guys to do. I'm seeing some from nods of the heads. This is resonating. You guys might be running into this as well. There's the smiles again, yes. And so, this is the challenge that we are faced with. Leaders say one thing, but the actions and the actual culture of the organization does not support it. And then here we are bashing our head against a brick wall, trying to figure out why this Agile transition isn't working. And hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars later, going at it again, right? A second round. And so that's what we're trying to avoid. And so this is why personal agility can be so powerful. And we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Let's look at the rest of these challenges. Team engagement. Yeah, so I'm being trained up as a Scrum Master, but will my team actually do this, right? Culture. Does this even fit with how we operate? And can we actually deliver in short increments? Because the way we've been planning are getting these huge projects and one big delivery at the end. Is that even possible? Wrapping their heads around how that could even be possible. So when you look at this, a lot of this is actually outside the team's control. And these are people that would be working on the teams. And they're like, well, hey, is the organization supporting me? Are leaders supporting me? I don't see that this is even going to fit in our culture. I don't even know if I can get the buy-in because of the mentality of the people that I work with. And are we even going to be allowed to deliver in such a short time frame with quality control and all these other questions that come up? So these are the high-level summary of all the feedback I've gotten over the last half a decade. Now, I say, okay, guys, we know there's going to be challenges. Let's just anticipate and assume those are going to happen. What could be the opportunity? What could be possible by truly embracing that? And this is where people say, well, what if we could deliver regularly? What if we could get a nice cadence where we can deliver value? That might be kind of cool. What about satisfied customers? What if people were actually happy rather than all these support tickets we get and angry complaints from customers that we see all the time? What if we could actually get it right as far as the features? That might be kind of cool. What about gaining predictability? Now, as we all know, if we've been working on Agile projects, we don't know all the details up front, but it's a more accurate plan as time goes by. We can still create a release plan and we can have an idea of what will be delivered when, but we're going to update it based on reality. And as soon as we know that, we can inform our stakeholders so we can have much more predictability in how we deliver. What if this collaborative approach led to more engaged teams? When we lead our training classes, and especially with the virtual, thankfully been able to convert this to virtual training, we make it intentionally creative and engaging. We do project simulations and we have breakout groups and people are so energized. And the last time I did one of these classes, one of the most distinguished moments that I recall was for a bank in Chicago. And we trained 40 other people over the course of a week. And I remember hearing from the coordinator who arranged the training, and she was like, oh my goodness, when people walked out of that class, they were so excited. They were so energized. They were talking about Agile so positively to all the people around them. Wow, what did you do? I'm like, well, you're welcome to sit in on the next class and find out. But what we did is we actually used Agile in the class. We showed people there's a better way to work. When you look at the way people have always been doing things, they just assume that's the way you have to do it. But what if you could actually make it fun? What if you could actually listen to people and they felt that their voice was heard? What if they felt like they were valued in their contribution, not just one person out of many? What if we actually had engaged teams? And I like to tell people, hey guys, you could actually set the tone for how your team interacts. The stuff we do in the training, you can bring some of that fun to the work environment. There's nothing that says you can't. It's how you facilitate. It's how you give people the opportunity to participate. It's really giving people permission to play, permission to be creative, permission to do something other than sit at a desk and respond to each other in email, right? So what if we did have engaged teams? How cool could this be if our teams were as collaborative as we are learning how Agile works? And then also, what about better alignment? Better alignment in the organization. So although there's a lot of challenges, people can see through the challenges to say, this is the opportunity. And this is what businesses want. When they want to go agile, this is what they're looking for. I've done some work with Lisa Adkins, who you may know as the author of the book, Coaching Agile Teams, and she also co-founded the Agile Coaching Institute. And Lisa has such a profound view when you look at this topic. And she and I have led some personal agility training classes together, some workshops, and done some online cohorts. And the feedback has been incredible. But one of the things that Lisa really pulled out and said, this is why it's actually important for leaders. Imagine if leaders understood what it was like to limit work in progress because they truly embraced Agile as an individual themselves and experienced that. Now fill in the blank from limit work in progress to sustainable pace. Fill in the blank from sustainable pace to we can only do so much at one time with quality, right? Like when you look at this, imagine if leaders truly embraced and understood Agile in such a deep level that they actually had empathy and understanding for their team. And then imagine if team members actually felt heard and understood and listened to, and that they could escalate their challenges. I mean, imagine what that could do for the organization. What's actually possible? Well, a couple of years ago at the World Agility Forum, this is an incredible award ceremony that happens once a year in Lisbon, Portugal. And they award companies around the world and individuals for their incredible use of Agile. And I've had the privilege of emceeing this event in Lisbon the last couple of years. This year it was virtual. But basically, one of the things that I started to notice is that the companies being recognized, they were doing something very unique and very special. And we had companies from Toyota Connected to Amazon Web Services and some of the larger companies in the world to some other companies that may not be as well known. And I decided I wanted to start interviewing some of the people from these companies to try to really put a finger on, okay, what was it? Like, can I put my thumb on what was it that really got them this global recognition? What was it that set them apart from other companies, from all the other companies in the world, right? And there was a particular company that won the award as an individual, the CEO from a company called TalkDesk. And the CEO won the Personal Agility Award as an individual for his company. And I was interviewing one of the people from TalkDesk. And I was like, okay, tell me more about this. Like, tell me more about, for this guy to get a global recognition from the World Agility Forum. It was created by Hugo Lorenco, and also the Experience Agile event is there every year as well. I was like, you got to tell me, like, you got to, let us all in on the secret. I'm sure other companies want to know, what did your CEO do that's different from these other CEOs? And he said, well, one thing that was different about our CEO is that he was really, he really truly understood Agile. He'd used it, he lived it, he breathed it. Like, he really was the example for everyone in the organization. And the way that everything was done, from the policies to the procedures, I mean, everything, the CEO truly understood it because he lived it. And then as we're talking, he happened to slip in this comment that I was like, well, wait a minute, whoa, back up, go back. He said, yeah, so in 7 years, we became what is known in the startup culture as a unicorn. I was like, hold up, back up. You can't just skim over that. A unicorn is a company that hit $1 billion in their valuation or in the revenue, right? Like, so looking at, like, what is that company worth? And so when you're looking at $1 billion valuation in 7 years, like, how many companies have been around for decades and have never reached that? It's like, okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Let's go to rewind. And I want to know, what is it that the CEO did that was different? And how did that lead to, can we trace any of that back to what your company is worth today? And basically, in summary, what he was sharing was that because the CEO truly understood Agile at a personal level, he was able to really set the teams up for success. He truly listened, he cared, there were escalation paths. All of the BS roadblocks that companies navigate, that teams navigate all kinds of roadblocks every day that nobody clears, right? And they just limp along with these challenges, and that stunts the growth of organizations. And when you look at, Joe Justice, bring him up again, he's done some amazing things. He's broken 4 world records building cars with Scrum. And the last time I spoke with him, he's telling me about how they're building jets using Scrum. And I saw him first present about this about 4 years ago at the Shanghai Scrum Gathering. And Joe was talking in the closing keynote about how they're literally iterating jets in 6 months. And I've been telling everybody about this. How cool is that? When I talked to Joe recently, a couple months ago, he's like, oh yeah, Maria, we got it down to 3 weeks. They're iterating jets in 3 weeks. Well, how are they able to do that? Well, for that specific scenario, they're actually using a scrum of scrums on a daily level where 7 a.m. they have each team member says, here's what we've done, here's what we plan to do, here's what's in our way. Then they have the scrum of scrums where someone from each team comes together and they say, here's what our team has done, here's what our team's doing, here's what's in our way. Then they have the scrum of scrum of scrums. They literally go up the channel until 1 hour later, the executive action team hears the roadblocks and what's in the way of every single team every single day. And they follow up on those roadblocks. Imagine that. That's what's possible when you truly have leadership support. One of my favorite quotes from Michael Sahota is, you have to put on your oxygen mask first in order to help others. And whenever we're talking about agile leadership, this phrase comes up because it's true. As a leader, we have to be agile ourselves in order to inspire agility, right? That makes sense. We can always tell people go do the agile, but it's only going to get us so far. So I'm going to talk for a moment about 3 pillars of personal impact, and then we'll talk about how this scales to the organization as we start to talk about, okay, here's the challenges that we have as businesses. Here's what we say we want, but our actions are different. And here's what we can actually do different. So we look at the 3 pillars of personal impact. How do we have impact? Well, you have to get stuff done. That's like 101, the capability. And this is in our teams. But then there's a question, are we getting the right stuff done? Because if we're just using Agile to get stuff done faster, but it's not the right stuff, that's actually not helping the business, right? So that gets back to product ownership. That gets back to accountability and looking at the return on investment in the whole direction of the company. There's something at a bigger level we need to consider. That's the priority. So, okay, so we got to be able to get stuff done. We got to make sure it's the right stuff. And we need to be able to listen and ensure that we have alignment. Because if we don't have alignment in what we're doing, how is this going to work? And at the foundation of this is trust. So we need to have trust, we need to have good communication in order to be able to coordinate properly with the impact of what we are doing. Now let's look at how this applies in an organization. So we're going to take those same first 3 pillars to get stuff done, get the right stuff done, and listen to create alignment. And there's also another consideration here in an organization for the environment. We need to cultivate the mindset of the organization. If we're trying to do this across a larger organization, well, that can get complicated, that can get complex. And everybody wants these high-performing teams. Yet you can't just say mush, 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 right? If you think of like a dog sled and like the leader saying faster, faster, install the agile, right? No, it's more like the sheepdog that is like herding the sheep as a leader, running with them, helping guide them, right? So we want these higher performing teams, but there's something that we need to do as leaders to better set up our teams for success. So we want to have that shared goal. We want to communicate that. We want to create alignment. So it's the team's responsibility to get the stuff done, right? Like they need to have the capability, the right skill set for whatever they're tasked to do. The product owner's responsibility is to make sure we're doing the right stuff and we have the right priorities, right? What's the actual end return on investment? It's a shared responsibility to make sure we're in alignment by listening, and not just listening to respond, but listening to understand and connect with other people and make sure that we're aligned with stakeholders, all of those things. And it's leadership's job to help make sure that we're cultivating the mindset and we have the right environment that's setting the teams up for success. And this is often where the disconnect happens. So when we have shared values and principles, when we truly have the agile mindset, now we can all be on the same page. And again, at the foundation of this is trust. So when we're looking at how do we have impact and how does this translate to a larger organization, these are some considerations, and this is something that personal agility can help with. So we've seen these similar challenges around the world, and we know that they're not just going to go away. Change starts with us. We can be the change that we want to see. And so it's the oxygen mask on yourself first, right? So if we can start to truly embody Agile in our lives, people will see the change. People will see stuff as different, and they may want to know what that is. Michael Sahota talks about creating a culture bubble. Can we create a culture bubble in our organization where we have a high-performing team, even if we can't affect everyone? Now, how much better would that be if our top leaders were on board with this, right? If our top leaders were supportive of this. Imagine if each person at your company truly embraced the Agile mindset. You could shift the entire culture of your organization. And that all starts with the individual. It starts with the people. We go back to the Agile Manifesto, and some people will say, what's the most important value of the 4 main values? And some would say, well, it's the first one, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. Others will say you can just simplify that to say people over process. It's people over process. Invest in the people, build up the people. You want that higher performing team? Well, what's the health of your people, right? And that can actually be at the base of making sure and creating that high performance that you crave. So let's talk about personal agility. Let's get into the details of what is this personal agility that we're talking about. So I want to ask you, do any of these things sound familiar? Comment in the chat if any of these things sound familiar. I have too much to do, but not enough time to do it. Can you relate? Now, from the smiles alone, I'm seeing that this might be resonating. So comment in the chat if you can relate to this. I'll put my hand up first. This often happens to me as well. Every developer ever, right? Yes. All right. I keep putting off things that I say are important. Can you relate to this? You say something's important, and yet it doesn't get done day after day, week after week. Oh man, I'll get to that tomorrow. Comment in the chat, can you relate to this? Keep putting things off that you say are important. Yes, Kareem, just like answering emails. That's correct. Oh, but there's always something more. James, that's true. That's true. Something always comes up. Yeah, this is the world we live in. I have too many interruptions before I can finish anything. Comment in the chat if you can relate to this. Parents, does this happen to you? Trying to work from home. Tell us, can you relate? Too many interruptions before I can get anything done. I say yes to too many things. Can you relate to that? Comments in the chat. Can you relate to that? Somehow, all of these things appeared on my calendar. Somehow, I had this open schedule that is now full of all these things that I don't know that I want to do. Yes, interruptions can be meetings, those ever so important meetings, James. That's correct. Things often take much longer than I thought and promised. Comments in the chat. Can you relate to that? Things often take much longer than I think and promise all the time. I'm right there with you. Right? We always give like the best case scenario, or we don't account for things happening. I was actually just catching a flight. I was brave enough to get on an airplane about a week ago, catching a flight back, and I knew it was going to be tight. And I had my ticket, but my bags, you got to check the bags, right? And you got to usually check those in within less than an hour before the flight. Now, there's only one couple in front of me, so I should have been fine, right? Now, I'm standing in line, and these people, they took like almost 10 minutes to check in. They had a dog. They had like a dog cradle. I think they had a second dog. They had multiple bags. There was some kind of confusion. There was only one lady up there. And I'm sitting there looking at the time, looking at them, looking at the time, looking at them, looking at the time, looking at my ticket, looking at the time, right? And I'm just like, you've got to be kidding me. I did not plan for this. I did not plan for these people that seem incapable of checking in at an airport. Like, I was not in my plan. So, this type of stuff happens almost all the time. So yeah, that's reality, right? So does anyone feel like this? Can't risk saying no. Got too much on your plate. You think if you stop, it's all going to fall apart. Can anyone relate to this? I can relate to this. And, when you start to look at, Neil, love hearing that. A lot of these things are in the past because you've started applying Agile to your life. Amazing. Love that. We got some things to help you fine tune it if you'd like. So, this is the reality, right? It feels like you're like riding a bike, and if you stop pedaling, you're just going to fall over, right? You can't say no to something because then everything will stop, right? That's the fear. Is that the fear? I think that might be the fear. So, this is the context that we live in. And this is like so many people. I'm seeing all these heads nodding. I'm seeing smiles. I'm seeing the comments in the chat. So what can we do about it? All right, now let's talk about personal agility. We use this metaphor, life as an ocean. And let's say that we're in Florida trying to get to Portugal. So when there's not a global pandemic, I'm usually flying to Portugal. Usually that might be a direct flight. Or if you're going by boat, you might just get on the boat and go a straight shot, right? Now, what actually happens when you're trying to get to your destination? Well, you start off on the journey, but something might come up and it'll blow you off track. Well, now I'm heading to Nova Scotia. Now, I've been to Nova Scotia in the winter months, and it is very cold, and I do not recommend visiting Nova Scotia when it's very cold. I recommend somewhere with a much better climate in the winter months. So it's like, okay, wait a minute. The best thing to do when you're off track is recognize when you're off track and get back on track. So the personal agility framework is a gentle, kind framework. It's there to reflect back to you what you say is important and give you the opportunity to choose different things. So what are some of the components of personal agility? Well, we have what's called a priorities map, and we start by visualizing what really matters. Now, this is similar to a task board, but it's slightly different because it goes into more detail of really, it's when you look at limiting, the idea of limiting work in progress, when you have work that's in progress, we really look at limiting the initiatives in progress. So what really matters sets the context for everything. So if you ask yourself, what really matters in your life, the top 3 to 4 things. Now, we want to max that at 4, no more than 4 items, because if everything matters, then nothing matters. If you try to do everything, nothing's going to be done really well to completion. So we highly recommend picking 3, maybe 4 items maximum to focus on in your life. Now, this could be something related to your career or business. This could be related to family or relationships or children. This could be related to your health and fitness. This could be related to a hobby that you have. Holistic view of everything in your life, what really matters to you. Now, what's interesting, when Peter Stevens first asked me this question, Peter's an Agile trainer from Switzerland, and he said, Maria, what really matters to you? I remember we were sitting in the lobby of the Westin Grand in Munich, Germany, at the Global Scrum Gathering, and I remember he asked me this question and absolutely floored me, because I realized in that moment that nothing that I thought mattered at all. And I had hit some health challenges, was in and out of the hospital, and I realized that nothing related to business, nothing related to travel and freedom from, flexibility from work, nothing related to anything else actually mattered when my health was completely trash. And I realized that I had to completely reevaluate my entire life. And this is one of the things that helped me to do that. And now we're hearing such incredible stories from people around the world that are getting the same benefits. And it's absolutely groundbreaking. So you start by asking what really matters. Get the top 3 to 4 things. Then look at what's the possibilities. So here we're not committing to anything. We're just brainstorming. What are some possibilities of things that I could do that would align with these things that I say that matter? And color code them. Notice these are color coded. So now at a glance, we can see where our time is being spent and if it aligns with the things that we say that matter. And then we ask what is urgent. And by looking at what's urgent, these are things that maybe something bad will happen if we don't do them. We can make sure nothing slips through the cracks. Now there's a huge item of awareness that hit me about a year ago. And I never really understood the difference between important and urgent until I realized most things that I do fall into the urgent column before I do them. And it's like, wait a minute, can we sprinkle in some important things so that they don't hit urgent? Can we get like more of a sustainability rather than, oh my gosh, I got to do this. And oh my gosh, I got to do that, right? Like, how are you living? Are you living at a sustainable pace? Are you reactive to all the things around you? So I want to walk through some more details in the personal agility system and how it works. So the main components are, you have your priorities map, which we just saw a glance of, right? So you can visualize what really matters, color code it, and you can track to that. We also have the forces map, which is looking at what are these greater forces in your life, the top 3 to 4 things that matter, and how can we put some parameters in place around what does that mean? Like, what's that? Do you ever stop and think about the bigger picture of your life? The breadcrumb trail are the things that you've done. So this is where you've been. It's like a little trail of what you've been doing. If you repeat last week and carbon copy forward that to this week, and then carbon copy that forward to next week, are you going to be happy with where you're at the end of the month? Or do you kind of wish you would adjust some things to get a better outcome? So this system provides the visibility in order to do that. There's also 6 questions on each week. You do a celebrate and choose event, and we're going to walk through those 6 questions now. So when we're looking at personal agility, this system is designed to apply the Agile concepts. But here's one of my challenges, because I've applied Agile concepts in my life, and I've crushed a lot of goals by using Agile. Some of the most ridiculous stuff you could ever think of. Launching a consulting company, doing training around the world, that was really cool. I started speaking at conferences around the world, that's cool too. I was speaking at a conference in Philly, the Heart of Agile conference with Alistair Coburn. They didn't have any music entertainment. My friend Nick taught me how to DJ. Now I've been DJing around the world. I literally applied Agile to building an international DJ career as an Agile trainer. Like, how is that even a thing? Okay, so apparently this agile stuff applies to anything, like literally anything. But here's my challenge. My challenge was sustainable pace. I really struggled with, I can crush any goal with agile, but we see our team struggle with this time and time again, right? And it's the same challenge as an individual. How do you maintain a sustainable pace? But it's not just that. If you use agile, you can get more done, but where's the actual fulfillment and happiness in those things you achieve? And what I realized is I was getting a whole lot of stuff done, stuff I could have never really even dreamed of, but apparently came to fruition. And yet I found myself miserable. And I realized that I had completely missed thinking about, will this make me happy, or what's actually going to be fulfilling in my life? And you hear this all the time about people that win the lottery or become millionaires, and they're just not happy because they actually see that their friends weren't really their friends. They all just want to use them, and they want the money, and people get greedy and families fall apart from that stuff. And it's like, well, wait a minute. How can we actually achieve the things we want and actually have fulfillment and happiness? And Alistair Coburn actually asked me this question about, I want to say it was about 3 years ago. And we were reviewing our goals, and I was like, hey, Alistair, he's like, oh, what you got there? And I was like, here's some things that are my goals. And he kept asking me this question, well, what about happiness, or what about joy, or what about things that are, make you smile? And I'm like, what do you mean? I need to make this many millions of dollars, and I need to achieve these things. I need to be the most well-known female in the world for this, and I'm like, I need fame and fortune. What are you talking about? And I did not even understand the question. I'm like, I don't understand the question. I add joy to my list of goals. And now I actually understand what he was trying to ask me. And I realized after having a string of successes and emptiness, feeling empty, that there was something missing. And that thing that was missing was actually feeling good about what I'd done, feeling fulfillment in the things I achieved. And so that's what I want for each of you. Not just to go through life and get a pay raise, make more money, get a new car, buy that dream house. Okay, but what's actually going to make you happy? And can you find fulfillment along the journey rather than hoping that you hit that point and then hoping that you'll find that feeling? And so that's something that is very distinctive with personal agility, is in helping people find happiness and fulfillment beyond just achieving things. And I think that's something that not too many people talk about, that I think should be talked about a lot more. And so I want to walk through what is that weekly celebrate and choose cadence with the 6 core questions of personal agility now. So we start with the most powerful question of what really matters. And this would be a list of 3, maybe 4 things. So 3, maybe 4. So what are those things that really matter to you? Write them down as you start to think about them. Then we want to start to look at, okay, what did you do last week? Now, if you can't think of what really matters, or if you're not sure, then that's okay. Look back at what you did last week or last month, and that's going to give you clues on what apparently mattered, because that's what you did, right? So if that's not what you want to matter, well, then you can choose differently. But let's look at the reality of it. Now, you can find clues. Look at your email, look at your calendar, look at your text messages and phone calls. Who did I talk to? Where did I go? Look at your pictures, right? So you can find clues in your phone or on your computer of what did I do last week or last month? And then that'll give you an idea of what really mattered. Now, can you aggregate up some categories? Was there a family focus? Was there something work related? Was there a hobby? Was drinking excessively with friends? Is that, okay, apparently that's a thing that really mattered, right? Is that something you want to choose moving forward? That's your choice. Now we want to celebrate what you did, because whatever you did something. So congratulations, another week of life achieved. Congratulations, here we are. So celebrate what you did, even if it's not what you planned. Then the next 2 questions are, what could I do this week? This is just the possibilities. This is just brainstorming. We're not actually committing to that yet. And then what's important and urgent? So like what could be urgent if I don't do it? What's something, maybe something bad will happen if I miss this deadline? And then of those things, we triage between what's important and urgent, and then we actually make the plan. So we spend a little time brainstorming, looking at possibilities, and then we say, okay, what's my actual plan for this week? And then as you make that plan, you get to choose. You get to look back at the last week and say, is this exactly how I wanted things to proceed? Or do I want to choose differently? And that's your choice. This is that moment to pause and reflect that we don't take. Rarely do we take this. And I say this because I do the same thing. You just rush into the next week, the next day, the next meeting I have to run into, the next Zoom call, but not actually stopping to reflect on, did this last week make me happy? Are these the things I want to be doing? Notice that this goes beyond just getting stuff done. There's some kind of element that's deeper on more of like a fulfillment level that we're trying to tap into here. And this is the cycle, the weekly cadence of celebrate and choose. So there's stuff that you did last week or you've done in the past, and that's it's led up to who you are now and what you've done. And then there's stuff that you could do that'll get you closer to who you want to be. And it's those steady steps forward that are going to make all the difference. Now, we added a sixth question called who can help? Because if you're stuck on something, well, you might need to ask for help or outsource it or just delegate it. And I've actually been recently playing around this idea and this concept of, if there's something that I need done that I haven't done on my own, who can I ask to help me or who can I pay to get it done? And I'm pretty sure I haven't found a situation yet that you can't ask someone to help you. And if you like set the vision right, or like if they're a good enough friend, they will, or just give people money. People will do just about anything, especially now with the economy being a little bit down. Like you could literally hire people to do just about anything. So it's like, there's gotta be, if you're stuck on something for a week, how long are you gonna remain stuck on that, right? So who can help? Now we've considered adding a seventh question here of what would make me happy. And we just wanna kind of keep that as an overall theme to be like, hey, is this the life you want? Because you're choosing it, whether you realize it or not. Like you're either the captain of your ship or you're just on the boat and you're just not sure where the boat's going, right? Well, hey, I thought I wanted to go to Portugal, but someone's starting to drive us toward Nova Scotia. Why am I letting someone else drive the boat, right? Like this is your life. I also love the metaphor of like you're like the actor in your life movie. Like you're the actor in your life. You're the leading role. Like did someone give you a script that says you have to go into this job that you hate every day? And you have to be around people that you don't like, or you have to be subject to stuff? Or are you the actor and you can just like ad lib and create different scenes? Can you rewrite the scenes? Yeah, it's your life. You can choose differently, right? So people have been applying this approach around the world. It's as simple as creating the forces map with the top 3 to 4 forces in your life and visualizing them. What are those things? What's the parameters for them? Why is that important to you? And then create your priorities map and say, okay, of the things that I say are important, what are the possibilities? Color code them so that you can actually see at a glance, hey, am I in alignment with the things that I say that are important? And a lot of times you might have some really interesting realizations on your actions are different from the stuff you say is important. And that's okay. Notice it, do something different next week, right? It's not too late. So people have been applying personal agility around the world over the last 4 years. We've actually been building case studies, and I'd love to share some of the stories with you on some of the successes people have had applying the simple framework that I just showed you. So Sharon Guerin, she is here in Florida, and she has become a very good friend over the last couple of years. And I love sharing her story. Sharon, when I met her 2 years ago, she was working 5 jobs and barely getting by. She went negative in her bank account so many times. She had over $735 of insufficient funds fees in 2018. In December of 2018, she was negative in her bank account, $17 and some change. We went back and we actually looked at the numbers. In 2019, she cleared over $20,000 in December 2019. In 2019, she cleared over 6 figures with a catering company, which is her dream business. In 2020, Sharon landed a 6-figure client doing private chef services. I mean, this is just food, guys. This is just someone making food. Like Sharon is an amazing chef, but she didn't know how to get her business going. And when I talked with her, I was like, I could have shown her Agile. Here's how you apply Agile to your catering business, right? But we realized that wouldn't have been enough. A lot of her roadblocks were personal roadblocks that would prevented her from being successful in her life and in business. And so when we actually looked at it, what was it? Well, Sharon put everyone else in front of herself. Sharon has grown kids in their 30s, yet they still relied on her heavily. Sharon was paying for her son's baby's mama and her grandkids to move in with her, getting a place that cost 2 to 3 times what she actually needed and paying for all the moving expenses, thousands and thousands of dollars. And one day, we were talking about it and she didn't realize that she was actually the people around her. And if you ever heard the phrase, what you allow is what will continue? The people around her were what was limiting her, but her being afraid to step out on her own is what was limiting her. So she had to grow as a person. She had to look at the things that really mattered in her life and get rid of all those roadblocks before she could be successful in business. So Sharon now went from barely getting by working 5 jobs, making over 6 figures in business, to then having one client that pays 6 figures alone. And she's also using personal agility with a health and fitness weight loss plan. We've been accountability partners. Sharon is down 50 pounds from last year. And so when you look at this concept and you look at the ripple effect, if people are happier coming into work for you, are they going to be better on your projects? Are you going to have better products? Are you going to have happier customers, right? When people's lives are more together, what is that going to do as an end result? So it's absolutely incredible to see how personal agility applies in so many amazing ways. Another person I'd like to share their story, Walter from Zurich, Switzerland. His challenge was his company was no longer profitable a couple of years ago, and he needed to make fast changes to save the company. They were about to go bankrupt. By using personal agility, now you tell me how often you see this in business. We've got 40 initiatives for the year. We got to get all this stuff done. Yeah, but do you? Or do you actually need real prioritization? So what they did is they took all these initiatives that they're trying to get done and making an inch of progress in every area, but not a mile of progress in any one area. And they said, what really matters? They applied the personal agility system to the organization and said, what really matters in the organization? What are the top 3 to 4 initiatives? And how does everything that's being done tie back to that and color code back to that? They turned the company around. They were able to not only save the company from going bankrupt, but they are thriving today. And one of the most profound statements I love from Walter is he said, the most important thing to me is to finish every week with satisfaction and start each week with confidence. And this is the number one thing that what really matters column on my priorities map provided for him. It's the visibility and the accountability of that, right? So another example, I'd like to share a story from Shweta from Gurgaon, India. So she quit her job to start her own consulting business, which is the dream, right? The freedom, the flexibility, all the money that comes from working for yourself. It just starts raining on you, right? No, not so much, because you now realize when you start your own business, you've got to do all the things. You've got to do the accounting, the sales, the marketing, the delivery, all of it. And Shweta quickly found she had no time for her family. Her life felt like it was like a messy picture. Like she couldn't figure out how to navigate it all. And like her family was taking the hit. And so she's like, okay, wait a minute. Let me start using the system to get clarity and to get some kind of systematic approach into what I'm doing. And what I love hearing from Shweta is that now, not only does she have things under control, she feels more organized with everything from business to your personal life, because we're one person. You can talk about work-life balance, but you have one life and it's everything in a jumble, right? So we might as well look at addressing it all. And she said, now people want to work with her because they know they'll grow with her. They're seeing her grow, right? And so now she's not missing important things. She can see exactly what she plans to do and making sure that she's following through. And again, it's that holistic view of your life. And I love this last statement from her. She said, a sense of achievement gives you happiness. And so it's really stopping to celebrate. We call it the celebrate and choose cadence for a reason. Stopping to celebrate what you've done and then choose either along those lines or choose differently. And then one final case study I'd like to share briefly, Larry from Colorado in the US. And he said he was doing consulting, solving all kinds of different problems that affect companies, and their own projects were only on time about 24% of the time. Like a quarter of the time was how often they were hitting the mark on completing things. And using personal agility system, he said it's one of the best management systems he's encountered in 30 years. And they're now able to complete their projects over 75% on time. And all of these stories are being captured in a lot of detail in the Personal Agility website, personalagilityinstitute.org. And also Peter Stevens and I are co-authoring a book on personal agility where we're talking all about the details of all of these stories. These are just the highlights. But it's really incredible to see how this has been transforming people in their personal lives all the way over into how it applies in business and in running an organization. I believe the sky isn't the limit. You may have heard that phrase, the sky's the limit. No, your belief system is the limit. What do you want? What do you want to achieve in your life? What do you want your reality to be every day? You can choose it. And I believe that this system will be just one tool. It's just a simple framework to help provide the visibility for you to navigate the things that really matter to you. This applies as an individual, and this applies in a business context around initiatives at an organization to create alignment. But also it applies because if you look at people that are coming into work, if their lives are more in order, if they're happier, they're going to be more engaged at your company. If you're supportive of them, it's incredible the results that you'll see. So many of you may be familiar with the Satir change model. So you've got a status quo and you want to get to a new status quo. What is that? Is that more money, a better job? Is that feeling better, losing weight? Whatever that new status quo is, you don't just be like, oh, I want to be up here now. Whoop, and you just jump up and you just do it, right? You don't just like magically wave a wand and then like all your dreams come true. There usually has to be some kind of foreign element. A friend of mine who got diagnosed with some kind of heart disease suddenly is eating healthy and losing weight. And I see his posts on Facebook and it's like, oh, awesome. Like, hey, what's going on? How'd you get so motivated? He's like, oh yeah, they told me I would die if I didn't do something drastically different. Oh, okay, that woke him up. So usually there has to be some kind of foreign element for people to make any kind of change. Now, you don't just then make the change. Oh my gosh, well, what am I gonna do? You got this chaos. And so you have a transforming idea of how this change will work for you. Well, you can't necessarily get rid of all the chaos. What you can do is you can shorten your time in chaos. You can do that by working with a coach or someone that's been through it before, or you can do it by having a framework or a proven method of navigating whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And so this is something that the personal agility system helps with. So people are reporting some incredible benefits of using personal agility. I would love to invite you to get started applying this approach. And it starts with just asking yourself the question, what really matters? And we're documenting a lot of these stories and case studies in the Personal Agility book that Peter Stevens and I are looking to launch early 2021. But in the meantime, I'd like to invite you to get some free tools to apply personal agility. We have a guide. It's about 17 pages or so. So you can download the guide, get a free copy at the URL, personalagilitychallenge.com/Maria. You can also see an interview I did with Lisa Adkins, where we're talking about personal agility for leaders. How does a leader apply personal agility? Why is this important for us as leaders? So you can listen to that interview for free. And then if you would like to get a little bit more formal with applying personal agility, I'd like to invite you to join us for our online training program. I've been talking with Kareem about offering this more in the London area, the personal agility system, providing coaching for people going through it. So we got this online portal that will walk you through 4 weeks applying the personal agility system, getting a nice little fancy certificate and badge, and more importantly, applying Agile in your life and getting the results of what matters and leading toward more happiness and fulfillment. So please check out the link, download the Personal Agility Guide for free, watch the interview with Lisa. And if you'd like to start using personal agility, you could start based off the guide. If you'd like some accountability, let me know. We'd be happy to work with you as you go through this, as I'm applying personal agility in my life and always excited to see people applying it in their lives as well. So we wanted to leave a few minutes for questions. Appreciate the comment in the chat. Thank you. Any other comments or insights that you've seen? Feel free to comment in the chat. Anything that was like an aha moment throughout this presentation. And I'll take a few minutes to answer some questions here. So what is the Agile, we got a question here. What is the Agile mindset? What is the Agile and the Agile mindset for you? When I look at Agile and the Agile mindset, you look at Agile, I mean, it's a set of values and principles, right? And when you look at, the manifesto and, what the practices are, there's many different Agile approaches. And so when you actually look at what is the difference with the mindset, it's not just following a set of practices or principles. It's not just doing that. It's really looking at, are you thinking and living Agile? A friend of mine talks about this concept of like being healthy or doing healthy. Like you don't just go do healthy. You can't just go do healthy. Like you either are or are not healthy. You do things that make you more or less healthy. So you might, choose to go exercise rather than sit on the couch and watch TV. You might choose to eat a healthy salad over a delicious pizza and you become more healthy, but you don't just do healthy. So like with Agile, it's not just something you do. It's something you either are or are not. So it's a mindset. And that's why applying Agile as an individual at a personal level is going to help you to really start thinking and seeing things in that Agile way. Any other questions that came up? Comment in the chat. Love seeing the comments here. Very inspiring. Tony Robbins meets the world of agility. That's it, Kareem. How important is an account partner?
Accountability. Sorry, I can't.
Accountability partner when applying this. Accountability to me is everything. Some people, they have a lot of intrinsic like motivation. I am a type of person where that accountability is a game changer for me. So I've been working out with a personal trainer. Like I can tell you, I work out way harder when there's someone there telling me how many reps to do than if I'm just like, oh, what am I going to do next? let me do some more curls, right? Like, you know, so like that accountability is someone that's there to be the sounding board for you to be like, oh, I noticed that you said this really matters to you, but you don't have anything in your priorities map this week. Does that not matter to you, or are you consciously deciding not to do that? Because it's okay if you decide not to do it consciously, but when like 2 or 3 or 4 weeks go by and you're not even close to your goal that you said mattered, well, do we need to realign the goal, or do we want to do something different? So it's really just helping you stay in touch with what you said is important. So yeah, accountability is really, really powerful. A question here from Tim. If you're beginning to learn Agile, what book would you recommend above all others? Ooh, such a great question. There's so many Agile books out there. One Agile book, just one, is that all? Okay, I'm gonna give an answer if it's like a software development frame, or, I mean, it kind of depends on the context. If it's like about software development, I really like Agile Software Development with Scrum by Ken Schwaber and Mike Beadle. That's a classic from, they're really talking about the landscape back in 2001. And that really what was happening with these projects that would run multiple millions of dollars sunk cost, years past, zero working functionality. So if you're looking at it in a software context, that's one that I've read that I think is really powerful. If you're looking for something about like really scaling and like leadership and business agility, I know Kareem has a new book that's about to launch. I've seen a little bit behind the scenes on that. That's going to be pretty good. But I would really encourage, check out the Personal Agility book. You can actually join the Early Readers Club if you go to personalagilityinstitute.org, and you can actually join the Early Readers Club and see some of the chapters before it's launched. Because, you know, when you're trying to really understand Agile, why wouldn't you want to understand it for you first and then apply it to business or apply it to anything really? So it kind of depends on your context. If it's software development context, I recommend a software development Agile book. If you want to look at like leadership or scaling, I know Kareem has a really phenomenal book coming out about that. If you want to just look at, hey, what is Agile and how do I get started? Personal agility is a phenomenal way to do that. Awesome, Neil. Wrote a blog post about my experience stumbling in the dark with writing objectives and personal agility. Awesome. Yeah, would love to check that out and share. Neil, I would love to get your thoughts. You know, check out the link of the personal agility guide and the free download on that link that I shared. Would love to get your thoughts on the more formal approach. Basically, you know, we know that, oh, awesome, wonderful. We know people have been applying Agile in their lives for a while. Like that's no secret. But again, we're hearing challenges. For me, a lot of it was sustainable pace or lack thereof, right? So if you can really look at, okay, what are the parameters to get success? Like even just starting with Sharon's story, I just love her story. Like you have to be willing to want to change, right? You have to put in the work, you have to do things different. But to go from barely getting by and negative in your bank account to 6 figures in a year to losing 50 pounds, like this woman's life has completely changed. Like it's absolutely incredible to see. So we're looking at this and we're refining what we teach, and we're saying, wait a minute, what are these repeatable things? What are the things that we're finding that are working for these people in different contexts in their personal life, in business, and starting a business, and working in a company, in leading a company, in saving a company from bankruptcy, from going from barely 25% of projects completed on time to 75% of projects completed on time? What are the key things that are working? And what we're finding is that it's what's in the personal agility system. We've made a couple of adaptations over the last 4 years and little tweaks and modifications. And this is the best practice of what we're seeing that's getting people all these incredible results. So it's really exciting to be able to have the opportunity to share it with all of you. And just want to say thank you, Kareem, for giving me the opportunity to share here. I've got one final question here. I'm going to stay on for a couple more minutes. I see we're at the end of our time box here, but love the feedback. I really appreciate all of you taking the time this evening for those in Europe to join us after the workday. I've got one other question that I see here, and I'll also stay around if there's any additional questions. Any experience of people and teams not buying in? I know how to run my life. We know better attitude. How do you change that? So this kind of that's a much deeper question that I would love to do like a 2-hour workshop on. Basically, if you look at, you know, people not buying in, people don't buy into stuff that they don't believe, that they don't trust, that they don't see, right? So how do you get empirical data, evidence on what works? What I like to do is I like to ask, and it kind of depends on the context of, you know, the relationship to these people. If people aren't buying in, well, what can I do within my control to get the results? Can I ask my team, hey guys, can we run a pilot? Hey, could we try this for a week? Can we just try using Scrum for 1 week? Can we just try doing daily stand-ups for 1 week, and let's retrospect and see, did that help? So I'm a big fan of empirical evidence. So like do something and then look back and say what actually happened. So is there someone in your company that's run a successful Agile team that you can point to? If not, can you be that change you want to see? Can you lead the most successful Agile team in your company? if you're getting results in your life, I promise you, people in Sharon's life can tell something's different, right? And so it's like, this is what can happen after using personal agility for a year. Like, people can tell something's different. So if you're truly using Agile, you're truly using it with your team, you'll see there will be results. Otherwise, you got to just keep escalating with those things that are the roadblocks in the way, and see how serious your leadership is in supporting that. But yeah, when people don't get it, they want to see proof. So I like to ask permission. Hey, could we try this for a week? Could we see how this goes and do a real retrospective at the end of that? Awesome, thank you. All right, Kareem, any other wrap up you'd like to give today, or any follow-up comments or questions?
Just a big thank you, Maria. I mean, that I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate you joining our little meetup to impart your words of wisdom. You've made me feel bad about how I'm running my life, so I guess that's both good and bad. I need to deal with that, and hopefully I can use some of those awesome words to help me. But no, thank you so much. I know it's the middle of the day for you, so I hope we haven't taken up too much of your time. Really appreciate you doing that, and thank you those who are still on for showing up. I know that there's a number of places you could have been today, so much appreciated. If you have any more questions, I'm sure you could stick around. I'm going to be here for a few more minutes, but other than that, we will be doing this again next month. We have not yet confirmed the speaker, but it will be somebody awesome, no doubt. So check that out. But otherwise, thank you so much. We've kept you a little past when we said, so I appreciate you sticking around with us, and I hope to see you next time. Take care, folks.